My most loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. I pray to Swami. He gives all of us the understanding that it is Swami who speaks, the Swami who listens through each one of us. Sai Ram and a warm good morning to everyone. The topic, as mentioned by brother, is a very interesting one, and topic was about giving gladly, and I accepted it gladly, to say the least, because it's a very important topic nonetheless. Many of you might know this episode, know this devotee too, the devotee by name Mr. Sinclair. Fascinating set of events bring him to Swami, and I'm sure most of you know. The most fascinating thing for me was something that happened after he came to Swami. Before that, just to give that background, this devotee is from the United States, and he has always been a spiritual man. He always had a kind of a yearning and seeking within, which led him to have many experiences. One of those yearnings that he had was, he would say that even as a 20-year-old, many a time he would break down asking or praying, how is it that you came to earth 2000 years before and I don't have the opportunity to see you? Right? He was a devotee, a Christian devotee, so he would say, this is so unfair that you lived 2000 years before I could come. He said, this is not fair. Many experiences followed after that, and one of the most beautiful experience was that one night he went to the washroom and he was going back to his bedroom when he sensed a presence in the living room. And when he turned, it was Swami standing there in flesh and blood. Imagine, he has never seen this form before. And imagine how it would be in the middle of the night. Your house is locked, there is nobody around, and you suddenly see that Swami is just standing there. Oh. Even if you're not a devotee, that sight can unsettle you, isn't it? He suddenly sees this person so charming, so beautiful, and so elegant, so regal, just standing there and smiling. He doesn't know what to make of it. The first thing he does is he goes back into his bedroom. Maybe locks himself up. But he's wondering, who is this person? Who is this person? And a few days later, he's again in his meditation room. He was given to meditating for long periods of time. So one day after his meditation, he opens his eye and he sees Swami standing in front of him. Just standing there. This time he says, I was not so scared because I knew that this meant something. And Swami gestured to him, to his feet, and he didn't know what he is supposed to do to the feet. But he goes and he bows down in front of this being which was standing there, and then Swami vanished. And then he started looking around for this form. He went to one of the bookstores, he described this vision that he had. The man in the counter said, I know exactly what you need. And he goes and he brings one of the books, I think the Holy Man and the Psychiatrist, and gives him a photograph of Swami and gives him little vibhuti. And he says, this is Satya Sai Baba, I am a devotee of Swami and he has come to you. And nevertheless, he looks at the image and he knows that this is who has come. The next thing is, he finds his way to India, comes to Prashanti Nilayam, and in that first trip, Swami calls him for an interview. Imagine, he is an extremely wealthy gentleman. If I'm not wrong, I believe he was among the most richest people in the world at some point in time. For such a person, Swami appears behind locked doors, manifests in flesh and blood, without leaving any doubt in his mind who Swami is. And Swami calls him for an interview and he's sitting in front of Swami. You can imagine what must have been his emotions at that point in time. And Swami asks him, "Will you do something for me?" He was just waiting, right? The Supreme Lord is asking, "Will you give me something? Will you do something for me?" You're saying, "Swami, you just have to ask." And what did Swami say? And this is what I said is the most significant thing in this whole experience, according to me. Swami told him, "I gave you everything. I gave you wealth. I gave you success in business. I gave you a beautiful family. Why are you not happy?" And Swami said, "All I want is, I want you to be happy." The impact that those words had on him was much, much more than the vision that he had, he says. Because here is someone who's saying, "All I want is, I want you to be happy. Will you offer to me your happiness?" In all the things that we can offer to Swami, our time, our energy, our wealth, I think the only thing that Swami actually wants is this: can you be happy? That is the greatest offering that we can actually make to Swami. And whatever we do is only trying to perfect that happiness. What is the role of happiness in our life? Can anyone think about that? What is happiness in life to us? How do you define the role of happiness in our life?
Usually relative, but should be absolute.
Okay, generally it is relative, it should be absolute. Anyone else? Right. So, do we do service to be happy, or happiness becomes incidental? So, in other words, is happiness a necessity of life, or is it the goal of life? Maybe goal of the life. Right. Happiness is union with God. So it gives us an idea that happiness is ultimate. But does that mean that we don't have to be happy now? When I have union with God, I'll be happy. Till then, I want to be sad.
Brother,
Yes.
This is very subjective.
It's very subjective, I
Because
agree.
one thing may be extreme happiness for me, but maybe for another people,
True.
that is just incidental. Okay, I'm happy.
Right.
So first thing, to be happy, first thing we have to be contented. Whatever
Right.
we have, we should be satisfied with that.
True.
And happiness is the necessity for life and also the ultimate goal.
I can't put it in any better words. Happiness is the necessity for life as well as the ultimate goal. Very true. Because if we were not happy, then we cannot do anything in life. If we do not have peace and happiness, we cannot do anything in life. But at the same time, we all are only craving for that ultimate happiness. Swami gives a beautiful term in Sanskrit. He says, man is Ananda Pipasi. Man is a being that is always thirsting for happiness, thirsting for bliss. And everything that we do is only a quest for this happiness. The other word for happiness that we everyday experience is, all of you might know, santosha. Right? Santosha means happiness. Swami would say that actually what you deserve and what you can lay claim to is supreme happiness. Swami gives those different stages of happiness: Manavananda, Devananda, and Paramananda and Brahmananda. And Swami would say Manavananda, the next one is 1,000 times more than Manavananda, the human happiness. The one higher than that is 1,000 times more than this. So speaking about Brahmananda, Swami would say that it is so immense. Imagine you are inheritors of that happiness, but you are satisfied with this happiness. Again, being subjective, that satisfaction is not right. Right? Swami says that satisfaction is not right because you deserve much, much more. That's why Swami would say the santosha is, in Swami's beautiful play of words, santosha. Little, it is not the complete. Santosha is samtosha, Swami would say. But the thing is, as I said, the happiness is the goal as well as happiness is the means. Which means this happiness is almost like the fuel that is going to take us through life. Just like how if I have to take a journey from point A to point B, I should have fuel in my vehicle. To be able to reach that Brahmananda, for this journey, I need some fuel, and that fuel is also happiness. There is this beautiful concept which most of you might know a little bit about karma and how what Swami speaks about that. There are different types of karma. I'm not going into all of that. Most of you might know Sanchita karma, the prarabdha, agami, and all of that. So the concept of prarabdha karma is that it is said that each one of us as individual jivatmas take a decision that in this lifetime I want to work out these karmas. Apparently it's a very conscious and well thought out plan what we will suffer in this life. That is what they say. That is what is prarabdha. Though we might be feeling helpless while undergoing that same pain in this lifetime, apparently we have consciously taken a decision to go through that and finish it. That is what is referred to as prarabdha. And invariably prarabdha is always associated with suffering. Right? This much I should suffer in this lifetime. But imagine suffering, prarabdha is not suffering alone. Prarabdha is also happiness. It's going down. So imagine the amount, the prarabdha, what it represents is not merely the amount of suffering, but maybe it is also the amount of happiness. Right? Maybe it is like, I don't know how to quantify that, kgs or pounds or liters, I don't know. So imagine that every individual before taking birth decides that this is how much happiness I'm going to experience in this lifetime. Right? Just a concept. Whether it really is that way or not, I don't know. So imagine it is like that. But I think it is not too far-fetched an extrapolation either. So we are coming into this body and we say that through this body, I will experience so much joy. So the analogy is, you have a journey to make from birth to death. The fuel in the tank is this quantity of happiness that you've chosen to enjoy through this life. And that is where we are. We all know how difficult it used to be to reach Prashanta Nilayam in the olden days, right? In the 40s and 50s. In fact, even till the 80s and 90s, it was not very easy to reach Prashanta Nilayam. I was once talking to a classmate of mine who used to come from, I think, the city of Vijayawada. So as a small child, he remembers making these trips to Prashanta Nilayam, where his parents would get onto a bus, then go into a train, and then get down at Dharmavaram, and then take a bus, So imagine Vijayawada, if you don't know, is another city in the same state of Andhra Pradesh. And it would take them 3 days to reach Prashanti Nilayam. Right? Within the same state, through all this journey. And they would travel with little children, so you have to be careful about what you eat on the way. So they would invariably cook for these 3 days that they would come, 2.5, 3 days. So very interesting planning, right? He was telling me that there would be chapati and curry, one of the items made. There will be chitrannam, like the puliora that we had yesterday, or lemon rice. And then there would be some of these dry snacks like pohe or puffed rice. So the idea is chapati curry has to be finished first. If you don't finish it on the first day, it gets spoiled. Chitrannam can be had on the second day, or maybe even the third day if you're careful. The puffed rice will last not only till the third day, even in the return journey it will be good. So when you're making this trip with this as your planning, you have to be smart. If you say, I like the puffed rice and eat it off in the first day, then you'll suffer on the third day. If you say, I don't feel like eating the chapati and the potato now, I will eat it later, by the time you come to the chapati and potato, it will be spoiled. So eating the same thing on the third day will actually lead to more trouble. Right? So the simple thing is, there is a process to using this. The same thing applies to happiness in our life. If Swami had ever told that you should seek only that ultimate happiness, then all Sai devotees should be a bunch of sad people. Right? And spirituality should make us sad. Because spirituality is giving up this pleasure for that happiness. Oh, don't have any pleasures in life. Don't have any happiness in life. Lead a frugal life. Swami never said that. That's the beauty of Swami. I remember I was speaking to some of the old students, first few batches. And Swami had called them for a final interview, a farewell interview, sort of. And Swami was giving them final words of instructions: take care of your parents, work well. One of the things that Swami said, life ni baga enjoy cheyandi. He said, enjoy life to the fullest. Imagine instructions Swami is giving to a set of youngsters who have just finished their studies and going out into the world. Swami said, enjoy life well, but avoid bad habits. Don't take to smoking, drinking, it will spoil your health. But enjoy life well. I don't see any of the youngsters here, so I can say. Swami also said, don't get married soon. Enjoy life and then get married. In Swami's typical sense of humor. Right? There was a devotee who used to come and as a youngster. So Swami had told him in the interview, you should get married, go back. I think he came from one of the countries in the West. So Swami kept telling him, you go back, you get married. And when he had come with his mother, Swami had told him also. So he goes back, gets married, and as soon as he finishes his marriage, he comes to Prashanti Nilayam, and again Swami calls him for an interview. And in the interview, Swami tells him, marriage is 23 hours and 55 minutes pain, 5 minutes happiness. The boy said, Swami, this is not fair. I came to you before the wedding. You're telling me this after the wedding. Of course, Swami is saying it in the lighter sense, right? So Swami was telling these boys, don't get married soon. Life ni baga enjoy cheyandi. Because I don't think Swami's message is not to be happy now so that you can be happy later. There is a heaven where you can find all the happiness. Here you don't be happy. I don't think that's Swami's message at all. Right? So what it means is, just like that analogy of the different food items that you carry for your journey, there is a way by which this bank of happiness that we have called for ourselves in this lifetime has to be spaced out and to be enjoyed in a certain way. And similar to that analogy, what is meant for one stage of life should be enjoyed in that stage of life. There is certain happiness that is meant for childhood. There is a certain happiness that is meant for youth. There is a certain happiness that is meant for your working life. There is a happiness that is meant for your post-retirement. And if you really look at the world today, this is what we have completely messed up. Right? Children want the happiness that is meant for youth. Old people want the happiness that is meant for youth. And we have tried as much as possible to, that small period of youth which is supposed to be maybe 15 years, 20 years, we are trying to spread it from early teenage to late 70s. Right? That is the biggest mistake we've done. It is not that we should not enjoy life. We should enjoy life appropriately. That is why one of the most profound statements that Krishna makes in the Gita is Dharma aviruddha kamosmi, he says. I am that desire, I am that satisfaction of desire that is not against dharma. What can be morally and righteously enjoyed is to be enjoyed. Right? And Swami says, just like how he says, Santosha is Santosha, he says Santosha is Santosha, which means good happiness. Even happiness and joy has that, good happiness and bad happiness. Swami said you should be after good happiness. And through this life, as I said, we are we not the body? Yes, we are not the body. Are we the soul? Yes, we are the soul, we are the Atman. But let us be very practical and let us be very honest. Am I in that state now? I am not. I still believe I am this body. I still act as though I am this body. So I think I should be honest and acknowledge that fact. And given that I am this body, how do I go about enjoying this happiness? And similarly, the happiness that you miss out now, don't think you can catch up later. We also do that, right? In the quest for a career, we miss out happiness that is meant for that phase. We think we'll catch up later. You can't do that because potato and chapati will get spoiled on the third day. That time, if you try to enjoy the happiness, it will only create more trouble. Similarly, there is happiness in that youth and childhood. Swami would say there is that quest for knowledge, right? There is that passion for knowledge. That is the time you have to gather knowledge as much as possible. It's not that you should not learn afterwards, but maximum learning happens at that time. So Swami would say, don't get distracted at that age. Don't let other thoughts. Swami was very particular. In fact, some of these things Swami doesn't openly say. When Swami says education is for life, not for a living. That's a beautiful statement. How do you make it practical? In Swami's university, Swami would not encourage the idea of placement during studies. Swami would say, when you're studying, you study. Job will come later. When you're studying, you should not think about money. When you're studying, you should not think that, how much pay will I get? So Swami discouraged that idea of having a placement in the third semester or the penultimate semester. So the message was, education is for life, not for a living. How do you make it practical? Ensure that students don't think of money while they're studying. So Swami was very clear about some of these things. Swami was also telling us, but I don't know, sometimes I think we were not paying attention to all of these things. And the reason he was telling us is, there was absolutely nothing Swami gains out of all of this. Right? The one thing that we all should understand is, There is absolutely nothing Swami gains from anything that he asks us to do. Even if he says, come and do my work, there is nothing that Swami gains out of it. If there is one thing through experience and that we have learned, Swami has hammered into us working in Swami's institutions is, I am not required there. Swami doesn't require my service. I require the opportunity to serve Swami. I need that blessing of being able to do Swami's work. He does not need it. I was sharing with brother the other day, we have some very elderly people. The thing with Prashant Nilayam is there is absolutely no dearth of inspiration. That is one complaint we cannot place in front of Swami. We don't have inspiring people to look up to. Because every corner there are inspiring people to look up to. Very recently, this gentleman merged with Swami. He was a professor in our university. He could have been the director of any of the best institutes, scientific institutes in the country. But he came and served in Swami's institute, and you all might have seen, during Swami's discourses, he comes and sets a mic for Swami. And anyone in the audience wouldn't guess what a knowledgeable person he is. Because he comes like as though he is one of the people setting the mic. So in the olden days, Swami used to call him whenever there are important functions like Dashara or Shivratri. He used to be a professor in Bangalore. He used to come only for this and help manage the audiovisual system. So one day he had set up the mic for Swami, and Swami delivered a discourse, and he was backstage winding up things, and Swami comes up to him and Swami says, hey, do things carefully. You're not taking care. Pay attention and do things carefully. Swami said and went away. He said, what went wrong? The whole function went on well. Why is Swami telling like this? So like this red carpet that you have, you all would have seen in Purnachandra, there's a central carpet, or even in the Kulwant Hall. One of the reasons is the wires run under it, so that when Swami is walking, it's covered, right? That is one of the purposes, apart from laying out a carpet for Swami. When he was rolling the carpet, he realized the wire that was connecting the mic to the amplifier, he had forgotten to connect it. He forgot to connect the mic, and Swami gave the entire discourse for 1 hour, which was technically impossible. So imagine when something like this happens, will you for even a moment be under the illusion that you are doing something for Swami? Right? So anything that Swami asks us to do, if you read anything from Swami's discourse, if you listen anything from Swami's, read anything from Swami's writings, be absolutely sure that he has nothing to gain from it. And Swami would often say, if someone who has nothing to gain from you tells you something, you can accept it. Right? That is one of the reasons why we listen to our parents. Right? Because in our everyday life, if there is someone who tells us something which is purely for our welfare, for our benefit, it is our parents. So Swami would say that, when you're not able to understand that with your relationship with parents, how will you turn that attitude to God? God who is not seen with your own eyes, how will you have that kind of faith for God when you don't have faith in your words of your parents? So when Swami says that this is how life has to be led, there are some happiness that need to be enjoyed at certain times. There are some happiness that has to be enjoyed in a certain manner. There are some happiness that has to be procured in a certain manner. Swami never said, don't be wealthy, don't be rich. But when you go about procuring that wealth, it should be done in a good way. There should be a dharmic approach to that act of procuring wealth. As simple as that, isn't it? I often recall this episode Swami had called one student to speak again in Trai Vrindavan. And this boy is known to memorize a lot of words like the Bhagavad Gita, and he used to reel out songs, Tyagaraja songs and Purandaradasa songs. And Swami used to like that, and was one of the regular and popular speakers amongst the students. So he started speaking, and then he quoted one verse from the Bhaja Govindam. A verse which, I don't know exactly, it goes something like Sura Mandira Tarumula Nivasaha Shayya Bhutala Majinam, something like that. The essence of that saying is, give up all comforts, wear a deer skin, live in a temple, lie down on the bare ground. So it is about a verse which is about sannyasa, a verse which is about living very, very frugally. So just as this boy started reciting that verse, Swami said, "Hey, stop. What are you quoting? What are you speaking?" So he said, "Swami, not me. Adi Shankara has said." Swami said, "So what? That is not my message." Swami said, "That is not my message. Have I ever told that you all should live like that?" Swami said, "So don't speak something that was his experience, but that is not my message." Swami said, "My message is head in the forest, but hands in the society. I don't want you to live like that." Right? So the idea is, there is nothing wrong in a good life, but there is a certain methodology to the whole thing. And if you do that, happiness is invariably taken care of. And oftentimes, just this acknowledgement will straighten out a lot of things in our mind. That this is how we have to go about experiencing happiness. And the idea that through this process, I am trying to march towards that state where the happiness is going to be ultimate. And when I say the happiness is going to be ultimate, it means the happiness will come but never go. There is nothing around me that can take that happiness away from me. Among the different kinds of happiness that we enjoy and we should enjoy is the happiness and joy that comes attached to this body. Just before the session, we had some food. That is happiness that we experience through this body. If we are thirsty, we drink water. That is happiness that we experience through the body. A good night's sleep. That joy is essential to be alive, isn't it? So as we go through this life, we have to ensure that we have these kind of happiness so that we remain healthy and charged to walk towards that ultimate happiness.
But the ultimate happiness is in a state where you are equanimous. So you're neither in a state of high or neither in a state of low. So how do you define happiness in the ultimate state in Brahmana, Ananda, that they expect the happiness that we experience through our body?
Right.
The happiness that we experience in the body, we have this degree of elation, right?
Right.
So we feel really good about it. But when you're really up to the maximum ultimate happiness, you're basically in the equanimous state, which you are neither here up and down.
Right.
So how do you define happiness at that state?
So this happiness that we enjoy is of different types. We'll keep aside the spiritual happiness for a moment. There are two types of happiness. Happiness that is attached to the body, happiness that is attached to the mind. Happiness that is attached to the body it is very subtle. Sometimes we don't even recognize that we are happy. It's all chemicals running in the mind. Your brain knows that you're happy. That's why we call some of these hormones as happy hormones. So let us say that I'm a person who likes sweets. So if you give me a sweet, I'm here in Singapore, I don't know the local cuisine, so you give me a sweet I've never seen before. When I eat it, the chemical mechanism of that is happy hormones will be secreted in my mind. And my mind says, or my brain says, you're happy because you did something that was pleasant. So the happiness that is related to eating that sweet started when I ate the sweet and probably just fades off as the memory of the sweet goes away. So one of the interesting experiments that they did was, they believed that fairly universal happiness, if you want to look at it, is eating ice cream. Right? So most people enjoy eating an ice cream. So they had someone's mind fully, electrodes put in to measure the chemical happiness that happens in the brain, and they gave that person an ice cream. And the most interesting thing they found out is the happiness that comes out of eating an ice cream does not even outlast the ice cream. By the time you take the third or fourth lick, your happiness is actually saturated, it's done. You've really never noticed this, right? So they say the first bite, it's happy, second bite, it's happy, third bite, okay, and fourth, it's gone. So that happiness that is attached to this body is so ephemeral. And you have to keep repeating that action. If you don't repeat, you will not find that happiness again. But the happiness which is attached to the mind, so let us say, I give you the example of a sweet which I don't know. Let us say there's a sweet that I am very fond of. I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying that I'm fond of this sweet. Let's say gulab jamun, right? Let's say I'm mad after this sweet. If that is the case, suppose somebody here tells me that we have gulab jamun in the lunchtime. I'm already happy. Right? I'm happy now. I'll be happy when I'm eating the gulab jamun, and maybe after some time also, had a nice gulab jamun today. That is happiness that is attached to the brain, to the mind, I'm sorry. So the happiness that is attached to the mind is actually a little more than the happiness that is attached to the body. So the difference between animal and human is this. The animals invariably can enjoy happiness only that is attached to the body. But in this human life, we have this ability to raise it to the happiness that comes from the mind, first of all. The other problem with that is, as Professor Venkatraman, our ex-director, would often say, it's easy to satisfy the desires of the body. It's impossible to satisfy the desires of the mind. Right? Because that is the flip side of this whole thing. The mind can never be satisfied unless you really try to satisfy it. Unless you choose that I want to find satisfaction. So that is the happiness that is related to the mind, but within the mind, there is another happiness. And this is where I feel that whole analogy I gave of taking a journey from place A to place B and carrying some food with you, there is a cheat code to this journey. I am happy only when this body is satisfied. I am happy only when this mind is satisfied. If I find happiness in the happiness of another person, there is no limit. Isn't it? The moment I am able to find happiness in another person, there is no limit to how happy I can be. That is the cheat code. Which means you have carried some food along with you in the train. There is one source from where you can take endless amount of food. Which means if I like potato chapati, I can eat potato chapati through the whole journey. If I like chitranam, I can eat through the whole journey. So the joy of finding happiness in other, and talking about scientific experiments, many of you might have read about this or heard about this too. In a city in Italy, if I'm not wrong, it is Parma. Some of the scientists were doing some experiments on the brain. And sadly, if we want to experiment the brain, what do? We first catch primates. Unfortunate thing. So they had caught an animal and they had put electrodes in its brain without harming it much as possible. So they were trying different experiments with it. When you give it food, what happens in the brain? When you scare it, what happens in the brain? What kind of activity happens? So they were doing all these experiments, and as they were doing, apparently it got late for lunch. So they said, let the animal be like that, let it be plugged to the computer. We'll quickly go grab lunch and then we'll come back and we'll continue the experiment. So they all took a break. And one of the researchers came back into the lab carrying an ice cream. Right? In Italian, you call that a gelato, right? So he came back into the lab carrying a gelato. The most interesting thing happened very accidentally. Suddenly they started seeing some activity in the monkey's brain. And when they looked at it, they found out that if the monkey was itself eating ice cream, the part of the brain that will get activated was getting activated by merely the monkey seeing somebody else eating an ice cream. And that is how they discovered what is referred to as the mirror neuron system. That in each one of us, there is this system in the brain that mirrors somebody else's emotions. That is why when you see someone in pain, you feel pain. You see someone happy, actually you feel happy. So after that, they've taken this and they've done all kinds of experiments with it. So one of the experiments that they did was, like suppose I have my hand here, someone else puts their hand here. So suppose there is some stimuli. They put something cold in the hand or they just prick a finger. For a very brief time, even my brain thinks that my hand has been pricked or something cold has been put in my hand. Then why is it that this feeling doesn't last? Why is it that immediately, otherwise every time I see a movie I'll be in physical pain, right? Almost like I am undergoing that trauma. So what they've discovered is, like suppose you prick somebody else's finger, and for a fraction of a second my brain thinks that my finger has been pricked. What the brain does is immediately it sends a signal to that part of the hand to see whether it was your finger which was pricked. And instantly the response goes back saying that no, it was not your finger, it was someone else's finger. So even before you can make sense of it, it has already been resolved. It is not your hand that was hurt. So don't worry about it. So what Swami is teaching us is, the essence of the teaching, you have the capability of finding your happiness in others' happiness. That has been inbuilt into this system. What stops us? It is this body consciousness.
Conditioning.
Right, it is the conditioning, and that conditioning has become this, I am this body, this is my hand, that is not my hand. This is my body, that is not my body. So happiness comes to this body, I should be happy. Happiness comes to that body, I should not care. That conditioning has happened over many, many lifetimes. And what Swami is making us do through sadhana or whatever it is slowly distance us from that feeling. And the more and more we distance ourselves from this feeling, the more and more we will find happiness in others' happiness. And if we master this art, there is absolutely no way we can be sad. Swami, makes it very graphic by giving this example. There's a boy who goes up to he's given his exam, the results are out. Swami says this boy goes and sees his, in our colleges they have the list of names put up. So and so has cleared and so has failed. So this boy goes up to the board and he looks at all the results. He realizes that he has failed. But this boy is very happy. He's joyous and he's smiling. And his friend comes along and says, hey, are you a fool? You failed. Didn't you see the name there? Your name is in the failure list. And Swami says, this boy tells, why should I feel sad? Hundreds of others have passed. I'm so happy about that. Right? It's very difficult to have that kind of an opinion. But Swami said, see the attitude. He said, so many have passed. Why should I feel sad about me, one person failing? Imagine if we are able to get that attitude. There is no way we can be sad. And the moment we have this, it is not that this is the ultimate. This gives us the fuel to march towards the ultimate. And that is why, Swami does both. Swami is giving us sadhana so that we can reduce our body consciousness. Swami is making us do work by which we will find happiness in giving. Swami never gave us the example of mirror neurons and all that. He doesn't have to. But Swami is doing something so profound, so silently in our lives. A very beautiful story we had once heard. There is this doctor who does a lot of seva in Swami's name. They go to different places where there is a lot of need. They set up medical camps and all that. And he's also very devoted to Swami. So he's looked up as a very inspiring personality. So one day he gets a call from a friend. He says, Doctor, we need your help. I have this person with me. He is into a lot of depression and he's very sad about something. His wife has left him. He has no money. So he wants to kill himself. He doesn't have the will to live. He wants to end his life. So can you speak to him and counsel him and bring him back to his senses? So he says, why not? Send him over to me. So this man goes to this doctor and the doctor says, are you sure that you don't want to live? He says, yes, I don't want to live. You made up your mind that there's nothing for you to keep living? He said, absolutely, I've lost all my money. My wife has left me. I don't have a family. I don't want to live. So the doctor says, good, I wanted someone like this. He said, what do you mean? He said, we are doing a particular medical camp in a place where there is a war happening. So we need to take some medicines to that place. No one is willing to do it because everyone is scared for life. And he says, since you don't want to live, you're the right person. Do you know to ride a truck? He says, yes, I know. So here's the truck, here are the medicines, please deliver it to that people. So he says, okay, why not? So he gets into this truck. The confidence of the doctor is, this is Swami's work, absolutely nothing's going to happen. But it's easier to convince this man than devotees. Because he anyway doesn't want to live. So this man's name is Bob. So he says, Bob, you take the truck and go to this particular place. So he drives this truck and he goes there and he finds there a village of few hundred people who because of the war have been totally cut off. They've not had food for 2 days. Their children were starving. They didn't have milk. A lot of old people were sick. They needed medicines. So when he went there and he just landed there and he said, I've got food and medicines. People came there and hugged him and thanked him and they said, we're so glad that you've come. We're so glad that you've come. And he distributes the food and the medicines, drives back, goes to the doctor and he says, I've come back alive. Do you have more to give? Do you have more to send? He again drives another truck, gives them more food, does this 3 or 4 times and he comes back and he says, I have no plans of ending this life. Because I have found the way to be happy. It is not about this body, it is not about this mind, it is not about this life. That is the power of transformation of giving. Right? And the attitude that Swami says is, we are not the only ones who give, right? Let us, Swami's devotees, not be under that illusion that only the Sai organization does good work. Only the Sai devotees do charity. There is absolutely no religion on this planet which does not encourage their followers to do charity, isn't it? Everyone does. Why religion? Even atheists do. Because they know that's the right thing to do. But the way by which Swami wants us to do is different. Vivekananda would put it in one sentence, which Swami has also repeated. I think it's a line from the Rig Veda, which Vivekananda made it the motto of, I think, the Ramakrishna mission, which Swami would also quote. Atmano mokshartham jagat hitaya cha. That should be the principle by which we live. Atmano mokshartham. I should attain moksha. What is my goal? What is my aspiration? I should attain that supreme happiness which cannot be taken away by any happenings in life. As I am achieving or as I am aspiring for that and walking towards that, Jagat Hitayacha, I should also be a beneficiary to the world. My actions and my activities should benefit others. And that is the attitude with which Swami says we should give. I am giving in the name of Swami. I am giving as a representative of Swami. The power of that is enormous. Right? It is not mere charity. It is enormous. Because when I give what I have. When I stand there and I say I give in Swami's name, I give what is his. And there is a huge difference in that. There's a huge difference in that. One of the most beautiful stories I'd heard of some devotees who were doing seva in a particular city in Andhra Pradesh. They looked around, they said, what are the different needs the city has? What seva can we take up? So they found out that there was a particular place in the city where they would have a lot of these laborers who would be coming around looking for jobs, would work in the constructions and all of these. And it's a very tough life, right? You come from a different state, you're living in very ordinary conditions, and you wake up really early looking for job. So they're all daily wage laborers. They have to look for job almost every day. So they'll have to come at 4:35 in the morning and stand at these places, hoping that some contractor will come and pick them up for work. So they would come so early that they would invariably not have breakfast. And they would straight away break only for lunch whenever the work ends. So they thought, why not we set up a breakfast counter then? So that all these people can just have breakfast and go for their work. It's such a beautiful and holy thought. So let this be our offering to Swami. So these people started this seva. Nothing, just early in the morning. They found out what is a good time to do that. So they would take turns, different samitis would do it. They would set up a breakfast counter, and in Swami's name, they started giving food. So there was this gentleman who had been to that city on a visit, and he was told about this seva that was happening. So he said, let me also come and serve, be a part of it. So when he was serving breakfast one day, all of these different, very poor laborers would come and take breakfast. There was one man who came, dressed really well. Right? He looked like he must have been in he had a good job in a proper office or something like that. Very well dressed, neatly, very trim, formal clothes. And he joined the line. He took breakfast and he greeted all the people who were serving, which means he was familiar with all of them. And then he went and started eating his breakfast. So this person who was coming there for the short visit, who was joining them for the seva, he was saying he couldn't hold it with himself anymore. He looked at the people there and says, why is this man eating here? Right? We are after all trying to serve poor people, and it's not fair. If these kind of people come and start eating here, it is not right. The other smiled and said, why don't you go and ask him? Why is he eating here? So they went up to this man and they said, what happened? Why are you eating here? And this is the story that man had to give. He had a good job. He had his family and children to take care of. There were a series of events that happened because of which he lost his job, and he became very bitter about the whole thing. That I don't deserve to go through this, but this is what happened with me. I lost my job. I'm not able to find another job. I'm not able to feed my family. In that bitterness, he turns to a life of theft. So what he would do is he would go into these crowded places like bus stands and railway stations, and he would pick pockets and would steal people's bags. And he's been doing this for quite some time, and he figured out that this seems to be paying him more than his job. So he was happy doing that. But the only problem for him was he had to wake up too early and no breakfast. So when he came around, he found that there were this group of people who were serving breakfast for free. He says that this works out to be good for me. I'll eat breakfast here and then I'll go and do my job. So the first day he comes, he takes breakfast, he eats it, and then he says, I went to the nearest crowded place. I saw a father and a daughter, and I saw that they had just come from a bank and they had a bag of money. I thought, okay, this is a good thing. They are going to be my target today. And just when he wanted to steal them, he happens to overhear the father saying that all my life savings are in this, and all I want to do is just get you married, and all my responsibilities are finished. The moment he heard that, he just didn't have the heart to steal that money. He said, oh, this is not right. I can't do this to this poor family. So let's look for someone else. And he goes to another place. He's about to steal, again a thought. What if this person also has a story like this? What if this money is so important? And he goes around different places all through the day, just not able to steal. He goes back home, he sits down and he thinks, what did I do differently today that my mind is thinking like this? And then he remembers, I ate breakfast in that Sai devotee is giving food. And he says, I have to try this out. So the next morning, again he goes there and he eats breakfast there. Again, he's just not able to steal. His mind has completely changed. So he transforms his ways. He takes up a job which was paying much lesser than what his earlier job was paying. And he starts living a good life. And he told this gentleman that I continue to come and have breakfast here only so that my mind does not become impure again. See, that is the greatness of giving in Swami's name. If you and I give, we will only give idli, vada, dosa, whatever it is. But when we say, I am giving on behalf of Swami, I stand here, he gives, I am only passing it on. We are giving Swami's grace. We are giving Swami's prasadam. Right? That is the glorious thing, and you cannot tell me that that will not have an impact on me. Right? It is not that only that person who is receiving will enjoy. That will definitely have an impact on my own happiness also. Right? It will give me, if I give 10 rupees to a person, it will give me only that much happiness. But if I am giving Swami's grace to a person, it will give me infinite happiness. There is absolutely no doubt about that. So yes, will giving make you happiness? It is scientifically proven that giving makes you happy. Right? If you ever had a doubt, it's scientifically proven that the moment you start detaching your own happiness from your body and your mind, the happiness that you feel will become multiplied and has the ability to become infinite. The thing about that Paramananda, which we were speaking, I am not touching upon that because that's a different topic altogether. Because the whole spirituality, if you see, the whole of Vedanta is actually a science of happiness. A very beautiful small story that I heard, very fascinating. Most of you might know John Lennon, right? The legendary musician. He would narrate the story when he was a small kid. His teacher gave them an assignment. So she wrote on the board, when I grow up, I want to be dash. So each one of you will have to fill. I want to be a doctor, I want to be a policeman, I want to be a this, that. So the teacher said, all of you will have to write this, complete the sentence in your book, I will come around and see. So everyone had written different kind of things. I want to be this, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doctor. When she came to John Lennon, he had written, when I grow up, I want to be happy. And the teacher looked at that and she said, John, you got the assignment wrong. You have not understood the question well. And John Lennon would narrate the story and said, I had probably got the question wrong, but she had got life wrong. Whatever we do, it is only for this happiness. And if spirituality cannot give us the means to find happiness here, it is useless. Let it make it absolutely clear to ourselves. Spirituality is not to make us happy in the life hereafter. It should give us a means to be happy now. Otherwise, it is absolutely useless to us. What is the point in being sad now in the belief and in the dream of being happy in some heaven? But there are boundaries to that happiness. There are ways in which that happiness has to be attained, and all of Swami's message is only that. If we follow that, however difficult it might be for us sometimes. When Swami says, sealing on desires, we are, oh, Swami, please. But everything is nothing but a way of, there is joy in every small thing. We go through life overlooking all of those happiness, thinking that I will be happy only when I earn this much. I will be, a simple thing is, any pursuit, you take off anything, let us say, you speak to anyone who has set up a successful business, right? They have set up a nice business and it's doing really well, they have a good turnover. You go and ask that person, they will tell you the amount of happiness that was there in the struggle to bring it up. We only see the happiness in success. If you speak to them, they will tell you the happiness in the struggle to bring it up to that state. If I'm going to aspire only for that money, I'm missing the joy of all this effort. If we believe that, only conveniences give us happiness, speak to anyone from the older generation, especially the youngsters. When I speak to my parents, my grandparents' generation, what would they always say? Oh, we had this trouble, we had that, and we had, inconveniences like this. We had to walk so much for water, we had to walk to school, But what will they say in the end of it?
We were happy.
Those were happy days. They will always say that. You make a point to listen to that. They will say, those were happy days. Which means, happiness does not come from comfort. There is happiness in comfort. There is no doubt about that. But happiness is in so many things. The beauty is the moment you start discovering that happiness, the ability to be happy in small things, it can even open up the window to that supreme happiness. One of the examples of that, as I've read, is that of, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. They would say that he was very fond of food. As a personality, he was very fond of food. But when through his spiritual sadhana, he had perfected this art of being happy, they would give him a small dish. He would eat that and go off into samadhi. Which means that small window of happiness, which every day we experience, through that he actually went off into supreme ananda. There is a beautiful picture of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa where he's sitting in that typical pose that he would do something, right? Something like that mudra he would do. Eyes closed and beautiful smile on his face. One of the very few photographs of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa that was taken, I believe. And I've read this somewhere, I'm not too sure of the story. So apparently the first time when he was photographed, someone brought a camera to him. It was huge equipment in those days. And in a very childlike innocence, he asked, what is this? What is this very strange looking thing? And then they explained to him the concept of a camera. We point it at you, we click, and then a picture of you appears on a piece of paper. And it looks exactly like you. In those days, you had to have something like that. You had to sit in front of a painter for 3 hours or 4 hours, and then you would paint it. And instantly, it'll come just like that, and it'll look exactly like me. He says, yes, that's the new equipment, the science thing they've made. Listening to this miracle of science, he went off into samadhi. How wonderful is this? How wonderful is this? That something as simple as this can be done in a box like this. It means that if through this journey we find that way to find that that ultimate happiness, We can find happiness in every step of life. Every small thing we can find happiness.
But brother,
Yes.
I have a problem here.
Yes.
The dichotomy is that we understand it theoretically. Everything that you say, which is finding happiness in someone else's happiness is my happiness. In daily life, it is so hard even to give that piece of brownie if you want it, or that piece of clothing if you see somebody, or that money that somebody else needs.
Right.
So, or the time, right? I have an activity to do in Swami's work, but I can do that to enjoy something else.
Right.
So that giving up of time, food, clothing, small things in daily life, how do you, that inertia, not that inertia, how do you
There is a threshold.
Yeah, how do you tip that mind to tell yourself, yes,
Right.
I need to do that. So practically, what is Swami saying, your experience, how would you do that?
Right. So I made one statement which was suitable for what I was saying, but it's not the ultimate statement. That you should give up the happiness now for a happiness that comes later. That is not an absolute statement. Because to a certain extent we have to do that. Swami speaks of two concepts. He says Shreyas and Preyas. Right? Preyas is the happiness that you can find immediately. Instantly you can find. I eat something, I'm happy. If I buy something, I'm happy. But Shreyas is the happiness that comes over a period of time, but it is the right kind of happiness. And every moment in life we will have to find this decision has to be made between Preyas and Shreyas. As students, I would always like to go out and play. But what is the right thing to do the day before the exam? Sit and study. That's unpleasant, but that is the right thing to do. In life, we will always have the sweet spot. What is the right thing to do and what I like to do. That is Swami's grace, little, so that there is no confusion. You know it is happy to do, right? They're different. You can think for yourself. What are those sweet spots in your life? I would say that the role of a mother is like that. There is a duty to do, and you also enjoy the duty, right? You don't feel bad that I have to do this. And I see that in my mother. She's so happy to cook for me. I hope so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I can be kind of right, because it is there, right? It is their duty, it is their dharma, and they find so much joy in doing that. Similarly, if you take up a profession that you like, it so happens, right? I'm right now doing something like that. I really enjoy speaking about Swami, and I think this is also my duty. So all of us will have sweet spots like that. But when it comes to a little more difficult things, Shreyas versus Preyas, you need little support from people around you, right? You need a little bit of pushing, because as I said, there is a threshold. You have to be pushed a little, and once you experience it yourself, then you know where to find it. Then you know where to find happiness. At the end of it also, right, it'll always bite. Especially, the choice between buying something for myself than to give it away. There is absolutely no doubt that when you give it away, you'll be happy. But to get yourself to do that, for that you need a little bit of support. Just like that story of that man who drove the truck I told you. He didn't think of it himself. Somebody just pushes, and I think that's what Swami does. In the Seva organization, you do this. Once you start doing it, you will know what happiness comes from it. Right? And it is also a certain kind of maturity. Even in our own education, we have seen that when we were children, we had to be told to do. Now you have to sit and do your homework. As we grow a little, we know, okay, this is more important. I have to sit and do my homework. Otherwise, tomorrow I'll face the music. The more and more you go closer to university, you know exactly how much time you need to study, how much time I have to dedicate for that. So that comes with a little bit of maturity also. And again, coming back to the same thing, that is why good company is so important. Right? The difference between Shreyas and Preyas, to be able to choose that. I always say this, I might have spoken about it before also, when I was doing a program on the radio. A small child asked me this question from the US, an SSC kid. She asked me this question that my SSC teacher tells me that you should avoid bad company, right? You should keep good company, avoid bad company. But she also tells me don't judge people. She says, how do I do that? If I'm not supposed to judge people, how will I know which is bad company and which is good company? What a brilliant question that is, isn't it? Right? So the answer I gave her is this. I said, yes, you should not judge others. But look at your own mind. In whose company you are likely to do the right thing, in whose company you are likely to do the mischievous thing. In the company of someone, if you are able to make the right choice, they are good company. In the company of some people, if you are likely to stray away from what is good, they are bad company. For that moment. Similarly, as you rightly said, it is very difficult to make that choice. It's very difficult to take that one step. In whose company you are likely to get that push to take that one step. If you're in the company of people who are always materialistic, it's very difficult, right? One of the things which Krishna tells Arjuna, the problems for a spiritual aspirant, he says is jealousy. And the jealousy that he speaks of is of a different kind. The worldly people have easy ways to be happy. Right? Today they'll shop for something, tomorrow they'll shop for something, they'll get something, they'll go on a vacation. There's so many ways of being happy. But the spiritual person, to a certain extent, has to give up the immediate happiness. Right? You have to give up a little bit of that immediate happiness. So when you look around, you'll say that they are also happy. You know, someone might feel, as Brother Deva was telling, that the brother of ours on his birthday, maybe sometime he'll feel that, hey, my friend on his birthday, he went out for a movie with his friends. Maybe that little bit of feeling, if you give too much energy to that feeling, that itself will derail you. So Swami says that is an obstacle. When you look around and you see worldly people happy, that actually will sag your enthusiasm a little. But when you look around people and you have around you people whom you're inspired by, you're likely to take that step. You're likely to breach that threshold. And nothing can replace personal experience. When, as parents, we only tell our children, only when they experience it themselves, they will learn it. There is no replacement for that. I'm not discouraging you from calling other speakers from Prashanti Nilayam. No speaker can do that. You can only be informed. As Swami would say, the plate can be put in front of you, the food can be served, it can even be taken and put in your mouth. But the chewing and the digestion has to be done by each one. Right. So these were the thoughts I wanted to share. If there are any questions, I'd be happy. If there is time. Yes.
Now you are ready to give and help or gain that happiness. But what if the person who's receiving end is not willing to accept the giving? How do you deal with that? And one side you want to, you are full of giving, and but they don't want to. So you get discouraged yourself, and that stops you maybe from further helping or somebody else. How do you go about with that thought?
Yes. Or I can repeat the question.
Oh yeah.
Sure. So sister was asking what happens when the person receiving is not open enough to receiving what you give. What do you do then? I don't know in what context you're asking me this question, but I'll tell you a story. So this was a story of a Swami's devotee who was, I think, still around. He was born and brought up in a good Catholic family in India, very religious and God-fearing. The moment he starts going to university, he falls in, I wouldn't say bad company, but some misguided youth. very, very taken in by this ideal concept of communism. Right? That's actually one of the issues we have in India. A lot of people take to this, that kind of a approach where you revolt against authority and power, and you are against the idea of religion. So he gets into that kind of a thing. He gets very, very involved in that movement. And among the many wrong activities they get into is trying to attack policemen and do all those things. So he was involved in a bomb blast in a police station. And he gets arrested, right? So 3-4 years of turmoil. When he's part of this group, he gets arrested and then he's put in a jail. And sitting in the jail, he's a young boy, 17-year-old, 18-year-old boy. Sitting in the prison behind bars, he's saying, what have I done with my life? Am I really in the right place? Is this where I wanted to be? But the idealism is true, right? I always say this. The idealism of socialism and communism is real. The feeling that everybody should have equally. The feeling that nobody should suffer. So nice ideal feelings to have. So it doesn't want to let go of those ideals, but at the same time, this violent life path that he has taken, is like so troubled by this whole thing. When he's in prison, the devotees from the local samiti, they come to the prison for doing bhajans. One of the activities they used to do. So they have these bhajans, and this fellow is already so irritated, and he gets even more irritated with the bhajans, with all the loud singing and clapping. And he says, who the hell are these people here? Why are they coming in? I'm already not able to sleep, I'm not able to find peace, and they're doing all this. So they did the bhajans. Then they came around giving prasadam. So that day they're giving oranges for prasadam. So a very elderly person, very good, soft-natured person, comes to the cell in which he was there, and he gives him this prasadam. He says, Swami's prasadam, please take. So the boy takes it, and he was so angry at that point. When this gentleman was walking away, he threw it at him. He literally hit him with that prasadam that he had given. And this gentleman, he turned back and he just smiled and he walked away. That smile hurt him more than anything else. He said, why is he not angry? And he could sense that there was so much of love and sympathy in his eyes when this man turned back. And he said, why is he not angry with me? So this gentleman goes away, nothing more happens, right? And this person is gone back to his cell. That whole night, the scene of this old person turning back and smiling, not being hurt by what he did, doesn't let him be at peace. So then slowly the thought comes, maybe all this is because I've moved away from God. So he says, for the first time in so many years, he recites the prayer of, I think one of the prayers that they teach you if you are brought up Catholic. He says, after so many years, he recites that prayer for the first time. And for the first time in so many months, he sleeps that night. Because poor thing, he has not been able to sleep. His mind has been so disturbed. For months together, he has not slept. So he sleeps soundly for that whole night. And he wakes up, his mind is very clear. He says, I have to change my ways. He transforms himself, he comes out. Eventually they say that good behavior, they let him out early, and he decides he won't take up any of those activities again. Slowly he becomes a devotee of Swami. He figures out, and there's a beautiful episode where he comes to Parthi, but the guilt is still there, that I've done so many wrong things. Swami calls him for an interview, and Swami pats him on his chest and says, you are pure, believe it. Don't carry this guilt anymore, you are pure, I have accepted you, you are pure. That, whatever traces of guilt which was there, completely removed. So he goes around, he becomes a very powerful speaker who speaks about Swami in different centers and gatherings. So one day he is delivering the lecture in a gathering of Swami's devotees, and one devotee walks up to him and says, your talk was wonderful. I would be very delighted if you can come home and have a cup of coffee with us. So he says, sure sir, why not? Give me a pleasure. So accompanies this gentleman, goes for a cup of coffee in his house. And as they're having coffee, this gentleman asks him, do you recognize me? He says, I'm sorry sir, I don't recognize you. Do you remember you once threw an orange at me? And then it occurs to him, oh yes, he's the same man I had thrown that orange at. He says, sir, it was you who transformed my life. My transformation began with you. So he tells the other half of the story. He says, when this boy threw that orange at him, he was so disturbed by the thought that such a young boy, such a young life, why is it being wasted in a prison? What has disturbed him so much that he is in this pain? So he goes back home and he sits in front of Swami and he prays, Swami, do something for that boy. Right? Do something for that boy. I feel so sorry for him. And he says that, Swami, you should transform his life. And after you have transformed his life, one day I should sit and have coffee with that boy. And that man says, that's what's happening right now. So when I give something that is mine, I can be disappointed. That's ego, right? I am doing so much and see, this is no response from you. But when I'm giving what is Swami's, it becomes like, I often think like this, see, when you say who receives the Swami and who gives the Swami, I can give you, I can receive love from someone else. Right? Because I'm not saying that it is your love or his love, it is Swami's love. So I give some people, but I might receive it from some other people. But I will say that what I'm giving is Swami's love, what I'm receiving is Swami's love. So I feel eventually that maturity will come. At the same time, it is not unnatural to be disappointed. Right? We all feel, because we all have ego at the end of the day. It is not to say that, how dare you feel disappointed? I'm not saying like that. It is quite natural to be disappointed, but we should not accept that state. That is all I'm saying. We should be in a state where, no Swami, it is okay. You don't want to accept it in this form, you will accept it in some other form. Yeah. Yes. Anyone else? Otherwise, I have a question here someone gave me. Okay, what is your opinion on the 9 planets affecting one's life? The Sade Sati, 7 years, will these cause good times and bad times? So I had a group of friends who suddenly took interest in astrology. They used to learn astrology from one of the teachers just for the interest of it. And what I understood from whatever they shared with me is, it's a precise science, right? Don't look at it as something which is like, it's not voodoo, it is science. Just like how we would have questions in our physics paper or in our science paper. A train is traveling at this many kilometers per hour, it is leaving a station which is at this point, it is going to reach a station at that point. When will it reach? It's science, right? You just deduce the answer from different data that you have. But anything can happen to the train in between. We just take it as, if everything goes as presented to us, then this will be the result. So astrology is like that. It's a very, very complex science. Yes, by seeing all of these planets, seeing which phase you're going through, it can be told. But is it the last word? Not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. And the other thing which Swami says is, there are very, very, very few people who can really tell you exactly what the position of the planets mean. So you can take that as a comforting thought. As we were telling yesterday, one astrologer tells you, we anyway go to the other astrologer. So don't take astrologers in that sense. But I always feel, respect the science. It's a science. It's a learning, it's an observation that they've had over many, many generations. and they've codified it in the form of astrology. This is not to disrespect the science that astrology is, but I think all Swami's devotees are fairly above science. Right? Swami has done enough in each one of our lives to not to give too much importance to science in that sense. Right? We have a master who's beyond time and space. There is not a sliver of doubt about that. Right? So that you don't have to really worry. The other thing which these brothers who were studying astrology told me, which is very interesting, generally they say, what are those bad planets? Rahu, Ketu, Shani. But if you study astrology from a spiritual point of view, Rahu, Ketu, Shani are supposed to be beneficial planets. They say they are the ones who do maximum benefit to you. So for us, it really gets flipped. Because when you are able to see reverses in life as a means by which Swami is taking us closer to Him, putting us through a journey, then how do you refuse it? Swami would say a good student will always look forward to the examination. Because the examination means an opportunity to go to the next class. Only a bad student will say, like myself, oh my God, exams are coming. Right? But otherwise, I've seen many of the devotees, when something starts going wrong in their life, there is a silent happiness in that. Because something is happening by which I am moving closer to Swami. Yes, the pain is there, the suffering is there, no taking away that, but the joy is there. So about these planets, if you think less of it, one less worry. You can save your mind space and give it to Swami. Not necessary to think of these things. That is my humble opinion. And interestingly, one of the boys who was studying astrology, one of my friends, so they had to study someone's chart. So they kept studying their own charts. So the teacher who was teaching them looked at this boy's chart and he said, is this really yours? He said, is this really your astrological chart? He said, yes sir, this is mine. And he asked, how are you alive? And he said, he actually gave a specific time in a certain year. He said, at this time you actually went through a very, very bad phase. It's almost impossible to survive that. And at that time when the astrologer was referring to, this boy went through a very critical health scare. The family thought that they've lost him, but he went through that. So imagine that teacher was asking, how are you still alive? Because according to your chart, it should have gone. So we can comfortably forget about all this, save that mind space and give it to Swami. That is what I would say. Any more questions? Otherwise, one more is here. I'll take this. Anyone? Yes.
Maybe we'll take this as the last question.
Okay.
We'll cover the other one later.
Later. Yeah, sure.
So it is outside of the topic, but
Mm.
what you are saying, which is, there are two sayings, right? Man is the maker of his own destiny,
Mhm.
and destiny is in the hands of God. So, Prarabdha and Purushartha, but which one should the life be led on?
This is
Could you repeat the question?
okay. Sorry. Yeah. So there are two statements that is often made. Man is the maker of his own destiny, but we also say that destiny is in Swami's hands or God's hands. How do we make sense of that? The fundamental problem with these two questions is the idea of duality and Advaita. Right? As long as you believe I am separate from God, there is God, there is me. Right? But if we just transcend to that idea of non-duality, there is only one will. There is no two wills at all. Right? There is no free will, there is no my will, his will, there is only one will. So oftentimes some of these topics confuse us because it is both ways. One step that side, one step this side. How are we the makers of our own destiny? Swami says everything is what you have done. Right? What you have reaped is only what you have done. So what you refer to as destiny is not something randomly given to you. Destiny is nothing but what you have done over many, many lifetimes, good and bad. Swami would say, that poem that he would say, Karma Mala, Karmalanni Chechina Karma Mala, Kantamala, Swami would say. That at the time of birth, there is a garland put over you, which is all karmas strung together to make a rosary garland kind of thing. And in that Padyam, Swami says, not one will be left. Right? It's not picking and choosing and making a garland. Not one karma is left out. If you've done good, you'll get good. If you've done bad, you'll get bad. One of the SSC teachers once told me that one thing that we always tell the children is, don't think that you can do more good and negate your bad. That is something that Swami had told them apparently when they had gone as Balvika's teachers. Good for good, bad for bad. Otherwise, most of us do that, right? Cheat in business, go do more charity. Swami says that doesn't work. What you've done, you have to suffer it. So when this what you refer to as prarabdha or destiny is nothing but my own actions which have become that, then I am the maker of my destiny, isn't it? What I do today is only my destiny tomorrow. So whether I am the maker of my destiny, yes, I am the maker of my destiny. But when we speak about devotion, that is precisely what you're doing, what you refer to as karma yoga. One Swami was talking about the concept of karma. The same thing what I just told you, good for good, bad for bad. You have to do, if you do good, you'll enjoy it. If you do bad, you'll suffer it. There was one boy who was sitting in that audience where Swami was speaking to the students, and he had a very perplexed expression on his face. Like he was seeing. And Swami looked at him and said, what happened? What is it that you didn't understand? So he said, Swami, any bad I do, I'll have to come back and suffer the consequences. He said, yes, you have to come back and suffer the consequences. Swami, if I do good also, I'll have to enjoy the consequences. Yes, good also you'll have to enjoy. He said, Swami, then if I do good, even then I'll have to come back. So this seems to be, what is, you tell us that you should not come back. There should not be any birth after death. But even if I do good, if I have to come back and enjoy it, Swami said, yes, even if you do good, you will have to come back in a human form to enjoy it. Then he said, Swami, then what is the way out? The way out is giving up doership. The moment you start telling, the essence of Karma Yoga is that the moment you start telling, I am doing my karma, but I am offering it to God. This is my offering to God, or with the feeling that Nimitta Matram Bhava. I am only an instrument. My children are being taken care of by Swami. I am just an instrument. My students are being taken care of Swami. I am just an instrument. The more and more that attitude comes, they are not your actions. Right? Which means you are cutting off the consequence from the action that you do. So even if you do good, Swami says you sublimate karma in a manner that you don't have to come back and enjoy the goodness. And it's needless to say, the moment you start saying, I'm going to offer it to Swami, I'm going to do it as an instrument of Swami, there is no way you can do wrong things. If people ask, can I do all the wrong things and say, I'm offering it to Swami, I'm doing it on Swami's behalf? You can think, but it will not be considered that way. Right? So the way forward for that is, yes, my actions lead to my destiny, but the trick that Swami has taught us is what you refer to as Karma Yoga. And even if you're not able to do it as an instrument of Swami, as we were talking yesterday, perform the action and say, Swami, I have given the action to you. I often give this example. Why do we do this Homa and Yajna? Right? We have this practice of doing a Yajna, light a fire. Why not a bowl of water instead of fire? After all, you're offering it to God. Why not just keep a bowl of water or just dig a pit and say, I'm going to drop it into that? What is offered in fire can never be retrieved. Right? When you put something in fire, it is for good. So the symbolism of a yajna is what I offer to God, I do not want anything out of it. So when you perform karma, when you're doing your own actions in the form of a yajna, one of the things that Krishna tells, he who performs all actions as a yajna will not be bound. So the moment I start doing all my karma as a yajna, which means I've done my duty as a mother, I've done my duty as a son, I've done my duty as a professional, I offer it to Swami. Does that mean there will be no consequence? There will be consequence, right? So what Swami says is, what comes back as a consequence, you say, Swami, this is your prasadam. So this technique in Vedanta is referred to as Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. What you do it as an offering, and everything that happens to life, which is actually a consequence of some action that you've done, you say this is a prasada. So between action and consequence, we bring the concept of this yajna, a fire. And mentally we have detached action and consequence. And the more and more we do this, all your actions get sublimated. It's technically, intellectually very, very easy to say. But this is a lifelong process which I am sure each one is doing to a certain extent, and this is what Swami is making us do. Right? When we do seva, what we are doing is that. Do we ever, I'm sure none of you do like that. Do we ever go and do seva and say, you better be grateful to me, huh? I've served you food, better be grateful to me. No. We say, give thanks to Swami. Don't we say that? Say, give thanks to Swami, it's not me who has done. Because seva gives us the opportunity to develop that attitude that I don't want results of what I have done. The thing that all of us have to do is that attitude has to be transplanted into our everyday life. That attitude, after learning it through seva, right, that is what is the act of giving leading to that joy. That attitude has to be transplanted into what I do in my profession, what I do in my family, what I do for my own body. What do we chant before we eat? Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir. That shloka actually is about a yajna. The fire is Brahma, what I offer is Brahma, the spoon with which I offer it is Brahma, the one who benefits is Brahma. So what we are doing through the body, we are actually, by making us chant Brahmarpanam, that is what Swami has done. Swami has made this act of nourishing this body a yajna. What a profound thing Swami is making us do. Which means, what I put into the body is my offering. The energy that comes out of this nourishment is prasada. So how will I use prasada? The moment it is called prasadam, my attitude and my behavior towards it changes. I might have preference. As I said, I like gulab jamun, I don't like rasgulla. Just example. But the moment the label prasadam comes, likes and dislikes don't matter. Prasadam, please give me some. So the moment the energy and the life that this body is pulsating with becomes God's prasadam, okay, how do I use it now? I have to be careful with this. Right? So every time we are doing that Brahmarpanam, this is the attitude actually Swami wants us to have. The food that I am putting in this body is I am offering it to the fire. And whatever knowledge that comes out of it, whatever intelligence that comes out of it, whatever life that comes out of this food is God's gift to me. Right? So we can keep on talking about it, but I hope at least some idea it gave. Right? So thank you for your patient listening, and sorry if I've taken a little more time. Saram.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Brother Prem, for yet another profound and enlightening session that we've enjoyed all together with Swami. So, Brother has actually given us a secret. And that secret is how all of us can be very happy today, in a very short while.